just click record. Excellent. So we should be on.
All right.
Excellent. So welcome, Gemma.
Thank you for having me, Connor.
No problem. I'm so glad you had the time and that you were able to, and that you were willing to come on. It means a lot to me.
I'm so excited because I'm a fan of what you're doing. Always been a fan of your voice, and I'm a fan of talking about singing all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Three very important things for this interview.
Although I feel like I'm a bit of a letdown because I don't have a cool beard like your last two guests.
I mean,
they were pretty cool looking dudes.
They were pretty cool looking dudes. And the thing is, I used to have my own beard and I got rid of it, and I felt very, I felt very embarrassed that I didn't have my, outbearded, exactly. Anyway, okay, so Gemma, this is the Let's Talk Singing web series that I'm doing, and I just want to do maybe get you to do a bit of an introduction to yourself. What you do, maybe hit on some of the points that we were speaking of before, but like maybe your Voiceworks Studio work and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you want to and then I'll ask you some questions during it too.
Okay, cool. So I'm from Ireland. I'm now based in London. I have a singing school that I opened back in 2011. That's in Cork, Cork City. And we teach contemporary pop singing generally, but we have music theatre singers and we have some classical singers, but mainly we focus on contemporary stuff. That's probably our speciality. And we're very interested in the science of the voice, like everybody is these days, and kind of try to ground all of our teaching in the most up-to-date research, which keeps updating, so it's hard to keep up with it, but we do our best. But I coach myself, and I have been traveling with a client for the last maybe year, and so this is the first time that I was able to, since lockdown, I was able to actually set up a regular client base again with my online coaching. So that's been really fun. So I've been kind of focusing on that. And I've afforded me the opportunity of going online. I go online at 1 o'clock every day on my Instagram and just do a general warm up with everybody. And we've just been kind of tweaking the business with Voiceworks. And so I mean, vocal coaching is definitely my number one love. Business comes second, and then singing is good too.
Yeah, it's important to like that too, I guess. And the thing is with Voiceworks Studio, and this is why I was like so excited about getting you on, is because I've really been following Voiceworks Studio since 2011, I'd say.
Yeah.
I really have. I've been such a fan of it. I really liked that you were creating a school just for singing. Mm-hmm. I know you've broadened out, and maybe even at the start you did have maybe some piano and guitar, but it felt from the outset it really focused on singing and good contemporary singing. I think that's great.
And that's an interesting point that you make, because we do tend to like flare out into other aspects of performing arts or music and find ourselves zoning back into what we do really well. And like, I can't believe, I mean, we say when we were at our busiest there in February, I mean, obviously we don't have as many students now because we've moved online, but like we had up to 300 singers coming for coaching in a small, in Cork. I'm not that Cork is very small, but like it's not a huge global city to have that for a specific. And also there is tons of amazing coaching available in Cork. Cork is just a hotbed for music education. So there's definitely something in it, but I really enjoy the fact that we can specialize in singing and contemporary singing. Yeah,
and I think like anything, once you specialize or once you make it kind of more niche, the more you can really be putting into it, right? So more kind of energy, more research. You're not kind of going in different directions. It really feels like, and that's I guess why you had 300 students, is because it was good quality teaching. And also, I mean, I have to say that the progression in the kind of the online presence of Voiceworks Studios is so good.
Oh, thank you. And this has been brilliant as well. This has been a real like mindset changer, this whole scenario of lockdown, and where I've introduced like something that I have been meaning to do for ages is like nurturing our Facebook group. So we're putting on like weekly challenges on our Facebook group. Or today we had a premiere party. So we we launched one of our choir videos. So we got the choir online and we were all watching it together on Zoom, being like, oh my God, here's your bit, and chatting back and forth. And so it's really made us think outside of the box. I can definitely see us keeping a lot of the online stuff as part of, you know, everything else when we move back into real life again.
Sure. I think I saw that video. Was it the adult choir?
Yeah, so actually we didn't do it. Oh no, they did it, but I wasn't there. But that was the adult choir, you're right. And we did another one today, which was a premiere at 12 o'clock with the Performer Circle adults. Yeah. But it's definitely something I'm going to keep, because there's so many times that we launch video content, like we have Voiceworks Acoustic TV, and we're like, why don't we get everybody together and we all watch it together online? Logistically, that wouldn't make a lot of sense in real life, but online we could totally do it and have a shared experience of watching it together.
Totally. Yeah, and it also, I mean, it keeps this sense of community alive, and also, yeah, it's a bit of fun, but it's also so, you know, educational and constructive, you know, and productive.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's your Voiceworks Studio work, and again, big fan of it. And you have fantastic teachers, by the way. And maybe we'll come back. I'm sure that Voiceworks Studios will come up again in the next while. But then also maybe your Jenny Greene work, which is kind of something that really exploded on Facebook there in the last, maybe, I guess, when was it? When was the Jenny Greene?
I think it was, the first gig was 2016.
Wow, yeah. And that was with the Irish Concert Orchestra, right?
Yeah, the RT Concert Orchestra and Jenny. And we did Electric Picnic. It's been so much fun. It really has. And watching the kind of the evolution of it all, you know, and like of the orchestra being like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
You know, used to the concert hall and used to, but then, you know, by the second gig, they were like, okay, cool. People just go crazy, take their tops off and jump up and down at gigs. So, right, fine.
Really in the concert hall, but
not the same way.
No. And so, how did that come about? How did that happen?
So I got a call from Mary Sexton, who's the coordinator of the orchestra. I think it was kind of a last minute 2FM project where they were like, let's try and get this in for Electric Picnic. So there was a quick turnaround. Mary was like, I know a girl, she's a friend of mine from Cork, she could do it. And they're like, oh, you have a friend who could sing the tunes, have you? You know, they were kind of a bit cynical about it, like, okay, who's your one?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, you know, there was a real palpable expectation silence as I left the control room to go in for the first sing through, and they were all like, she better be able to sing. And so it all kind of worked out, yeah.
Excellent. And then, so you did the Electric Picnic, and then you did a second gig, right? Or you've done a couple of gigs, right?
Yeah, every year we've done maybe 6 or 7 gigs a year. Yeah, we've done like the Marquee and Three Arena and Galway, and we did Limerick, Waterford. Yeah, on tour.
Yeah, and what's it like? So you're on stage, you have a full orchestra in front of you, you have Jenny Greene, the DJ, beside you, or next to you, or close to you, and your experience, I mean, maybe this is something that's interesting, obviously, to singers as well. When you start doing those type of gigs, the challenges become different, right? So you're using in-ears, you're watching a conductor, right? So I'm sure that the rehearsals were pretty intense. And then the gig itself, what was the kind of things did you come across or come to any kind of difficulties, or? Yeah,
I definitely did. I definitely grew a lot, learned a lot about myself, proved a lot of things to myself. There's so much. There's like, so I suppose the more high level gig you end up getting, actually the less you get to rehearse. I noticed the more they expect you to show up and deliver, and they're not going to hold your hand. They're just going to need you to show up. Time is money. There's 50 people in the orchestra. So I didn't actually really get to sing with the orchestra and hear it properly until the sound check on the day. So when I left the sound check, I actually thought somebody had spiked my drink, because I was like, so cool. Oh my God. I think I ended up in, there was like this security prefab out the back. Everybody went off and had dinner, did some schmoozing. I just paced inside that little prefab from sound check, which was like 2.5, 3 hours until the gig. And there was a security man in there who was just like, oh my God, would she actually go away? But I was just absolutely vibrating from the experience of it. And then, like, you know, we didn't expect the crowd that showed up and all of that. But yeah, it was an amazing experience to have like that powerful sound system and the orchestra and the level of the quality of the beats, and my vocal sounded great in the in-ears. I was just having, there were like dream tunes to sing, and I was having an absolute ball. So the time when I had a really interesting learning experience coming up to the 3 Arena gig, because the 3 Arena gig to me was different again. Like, it was like I didn't have the expectations on Electric Picnics. I didn't think anyone would anyone show up? I didn't know. And so with the 3 Arena gig, you know it's sold out. You know it's a 3 Arena. You know you've been there to see Beyonce. What the hell are you doing on that stage? That's weird. Like, what is going on? And so I had a real, it was probably the most growth I've ever experienced as a performer and as a singer in the lead up to that. And I had read this book, which I can't remember the name of it now, but I will tell you if it comes to me. But anyway, in the book, it goes on about Wim Hoff, and he, when he prepares for his like cold water deep diving, holding his breath under cold water, he imagines all of the worst case scenarios, and that is exactly what prepared me for that gig. I was like, imagine all the worst things that could possibly happen in this situation, and how do I prepare for each single one of those worst case scenarios? Amazing. And then when I got on stage, I felt so in flow. I felt so bulletproof. I was like, I felt fierce. It was so fun. And that's because I felt like I just so diligently went through with a fine-tooth comb everything that could have gone wrong. And so many people are like, just imagine it's amazing, just imagine it's so positive and fab. And I'm like, no, think of all the stuff that's going to go wrong, prepare, and then you get up and you can give them everything you've got.
That's so clever. That is so clever. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's something, as you said, a lot of people don't think of that, and think that, okay, just imagine it's going to be great, and it will be great, and it's going to be great, and you're going to sing fantastic, and everyone's going to love it, and it's fine. And if you think positively, it'll be good. You're
just lying to yourself, because you're really going, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to forget the words. I can't get the high note. I'm talking crap.
But I mean, that's such a good way to. That book was from the Iceman, no? I mean, the guy.
Oh no, it wasn't. I'm really annoyed that it won't come to my mind right now.
I know that guy. He does some fantastic breathing exercises on YouTube.
Yeah, he's amazing. It was actually just an anecdote about him in another book. Originals. Okay. It's called Originals.
Originals. I'm gonna write that down.
Yes. I will. You can put it in the details after. I'll get you the author of it.
Totally.
Originals.
I mean, but as I said, it's such a clever thing to do, especially as we forget sometimes as singers or performers or musicians or anything like that, that it's a high intensity, real time workout in front of people. Yeah, and
what you really need is your mind to just focus on like that one, and that was it's a really amazing feeling when you find that. I'm sure you've experienced that in performance, where your mind zeroes in on that one thing that you're doing. Totally. Nothing else gets into the frequency realm. But to have that experience of flow is really beautiful.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's great. So that's the Jenny Greene stuff, and again, you can check that out on YouTube. Anyone watching now, you can go and watch it, right? I guess it's all up on YouTube.
You'll see me in the clip going, oh my God, what are all these people doing here? Oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah, but you'll also see in the clip of you going, it's powerful. Okay, cool, great, Gemma, that's excellent. So I want to go and also tip a small bit, just before I get into some questions, I want to talk a small bit about this vocology in practice, which interests me quite a lot, because it's
you should join.
I would love to join.
Please.
I've been looking to see if there's a VIP teacher here in Germany. I haven't found one yet. I guess there might be, but it's something that's so cool, so interesting.
Yes. So
maybe you want to I want to tell us a small bit about it.
I'm so excited that you're interested in it. It definitely okay, so to track back a little bit, 2015, I think I was kind of looking up online for resources. I came across the Naked Vocalist podcast, and I listened to it, and I really liked their personalities, and I really liked their approach, and obviously they were really knowledgeable. So I was like, oh my god, this is an amazing resource. And like, yeah, so I started listening to that, and after the podcast, I think I got in touch with them. I sent them an email, and I'm like, oh my god, your podcast is brilliant, and would you consider maybe coming to my school in Cork and doing a workshop for us? And they got back and they were like, sure. And I'm like, oh, I'd also love a lesson. And they were like, yeah. So both of them actually gave me a lesson together, which is so cute. And we had a great time, and they were like, you should join our organization that we're in, I think you'd really enjoy it. And so they put me onto the website, and I checked that out, and I was like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. Now I had to go through a process of application, and I wasn't good enough to get in, and I had to do a course, and it was Ian Davidson, who's a really good friend of mine now. He was hard on me, and it was the best thing that happened to me. He really kind of flagged my gaps. I could kind of bluff my way a good bit through it, but with the anatomy and the like acoustic science stuff, I wasn't up to speed really. And he, you know, he had a really kind of direct approach about it. And it was, again, it's another like this growth spurt I feel like I had in my life, where I was like, I'm going to show him, I'm going to, like, you know, in a really positive way, like not like prove him wrong or something, but I really wanted to kind of prove to myself. But, you know, especially when you're like the business owner, like I'm the owner of Voiceworks, I don't have a lot of feedback. You know, nobody's going to tell me I'm wrong, and I really need that. And so that was another part of it that really made me gravitate towards it. So I upskilled, I got in, and then I ended up going to their first one of their conferences in San Francisco, meeting loads of people over there. I met Dave Straud, and Dave actually runs this amazing camp, which I had heard about on the Naked Vocalist podcast, VocalizeU, and I looked that up, and I'm like, oh my god, that'd be a dream to go to as an artist. And then anyway, I met Dave in San Francisco, and then he invited me to actually coach on the artist retreat, and I was like, okay, so the Naked Vocalist, I owe them a lot. I always tell them. But yeah, they kind of gatewayed me into a new community of people, and I have friends for life there, and you know, we're in the process of organizing an online event between the 10th and 12th of July is when we're looking at it. That's an exclusive. So we're just looking at speakers. We just kind of got signed off on it a couple of days ago, so we're looking at speakers, but it's going to be really great. And membership's really affordable. Membership is $38 a month. And you get mentorship, and you get your discounted events, and you get articles every fortnight. Yeah, so it's a great community, and we're working really hard to kind of build it all the time.
Yeah, and what's cool is, I mean, when you go onto the website, you're a board member, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so I became, I joined the board maybe 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago. I kind of, after the first year, I ended up joining the board, and then it was funny because I moved into a position now with Kaya. It's kind of for now, Director of Education, and we got an application from Justin Stoney to be part of, who's a vocal coach on YouTube. And so I'd only kind of moved into that role in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I got a message being like, can you interview Justin Stoney? And I'm like, no, I do not live in that parallel universe. I'm not interviewing Justin Stoney on his academic knowledge of the voice. Sorry. Right, so Aya, can you do that, please? Because like, I think Justin's incredible. But anyway, of course, he just, you know, he's in, and we're delighted to have him. He's such a lovely guy. So yes, that's VIP.
It sounds so cool. And again, like when you look at the people that are on the board, and people that are members, and the people that are tutors and mentors and stuff, it's like like, you just can't believe the amount of talent that's there, the amount of specialities, the different types of singers, the different types of people, where they've come from. It's really cool.
And because it's kind of a lonely path as a vocal coach as well. You know, you're in your studio, you have your students back to back. There aren't many, communities for us, or like to kind of exist in. And I think that I really needed that, like feeling like I had more peers, or even that I was, you know, that I had a lot of people to look up to, and I really respect and look up to all of my teachers, but of course they're never going to feel maybe as comfortable to kind of tell me that, you know, you don't do that, that's wrong, or oh, you know, maybe we could get better at that, but
that's a gesture box. That's all that always works.
It's gesture by anonymous.
Anonymous, exactly. Do better. Who was that?
In what?
But I mean that's so cool, and I think you're totally right. As I mean, I'm only really becoming vocal coach or singing teacher in the last 2.5 years or so. But it does feel, I think there's always this sense of everyone out for themselves, because it's kind of, you know, it's seen as other teachers. If you're not a good enough teacher, there's going to be a better one beside you, and you might lose some clients or whatever it is. You know, I think there's, and like anything, like any business, I guess it's the very same. But I think it's great then when you have the opportunity to be in a community where everyone is helping each other and supporting each other.
Definitely, yeah. And the kind of motto, we're kind of working on a message at the moment, and we were saying that like a new message we were thinking about was like hundreds of methods, thousands of tools, let's share. And so that we're not getting too like, we're never like bogged down by a methodology. We're very open, and we try to make sure that every single conference feels wide open, and that, you know, we're not showing a bias towards anything. Even science, we're trying to make sure that we don't make this bias of like research and science is the holy grail, because, you know, it's human nature to try and kind of make something the holy grail. And so we're like, but also artistry, and also business, and also psychology and pedagogy, and like there's all these other aspects of how to become a very good vocal coach without it just being science, because science could become a methodology then.
Exactly. And then again, it's making the doors close and you getting a bit tunnel vision, and then you're stopping yourself learning. Well, I mean, it's great. I contacted you, I guess it was this year, right? Early this year. Yeah. I think. And I mean, I think we had met a couple of years ago, when I think you were gigging with Jericho with Dara Keary. Yeah. And we did a gig with you, I think, in somewhere in Cork. It might have been I don't know where it was.
Maybe it was in the Pav.
Yeah, the Pav or something like
that. Or the
Crane. Maybe. Oh, no, it wasn't Crane Lane. Somewhere, anyway. Yeah. And it was great. And it was fantastic. And Dara Keary, I think, asked me to sing with you or something like that. And yes. I had not prepared any of the harmonies. I think, I'm not sure if I got them. I think I did, but at that point I was in my leading armies world of rock and roll and stuff like that, and I was so delighted to be able to be asked to come and sing with Jericho. And I remember standing, I think, was it not that I stood on stage with you?
Yeah.
Right? And I remember you there, and you were singing all the harmonies, and I was trying to, you know, sing in between and stuff, and kind of just constantly being blown away. It was just kind of like, my God, this girl is so good. I'm like, okay, just keep concentrated. And I met you afterwards, or I met you before, and you were so lovely, and you were so willing to chat and talk and stuff. And then I saw you play with Stone Fox, right, in Cork, at the Cork Jazz Festival.
Yeah, good memory.
And that was when I think I sent you another Facebook message afterwards, where I kind of was just, and I'm even now a small bit fangirling. It was just so good to see, as I said in the message, it was so good. Like, if people haven't heard Gemma, anyone who's watching, it's such a pleasure listening and watching Gemma perform and sings, because I feel, Gemma, you have this kind of this all-encompassing voice where you can kind of do anything, you can kind of sing anything, and you can really showcase, but you're also very sensitive when you're to the points in the songs. You don't take over, you're not a big diva, but you're also not shying away. And in Stone Fox, I mean, you were playing all of that. I remember sitting there or standing there going, love that song.
It was a good set, yeah.
It was a really good set. I think, you were playing all that kind of, also at that point, you were playing all, still kind of, you were doing funk, disco, but also you were doing kind of neo soul stuff, I guess, at that point too. Some maybe you were doing some Lauryn Hill, or I'm not even sure. But anyway, it was really good.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. They were good times. That was a really fun band to sing with.
And a great band as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, they were really good days. And I remember, I thought I was totally impressed and blown away by you as well. And you're such a rare kind. I feel like, there are many wonderful female vocalists, not many gorgeous tenor pop vocalists with a good control over their instrument that are very stylistically in that area. I feel like there are many of those maybe more music theatre trained, or you're definitely a rare gem.
Okay.
Plugging in my laptop here, sorry.
No problem. I was just going to say enough of this belly rubbing for each of us.
Belly rubbing.
Okay, but excellent. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And it's a massive compliment coming from you. Okay, so one last thing actually, and I'm sure we probably would get to it, but I want to make sure that we get to it, is your recent project with the jazz band Julien Colarossi.
Yeah, I moved to Dublin, what year was it? 2017, just for the laugh. And I went to a jam with Julien in the International Bar, and I sang
downstairs in that little.
Oh yeah, it's really cool. I sang with these 4 men that they're all so beautiful. They're just so intuitive. I felt like the dynamics were written on my back, and they'd never met me before. I was like. And so I was totally captivated by them, and we just decided to record an album together at the end of that. It was the following summer, and we went to Italy together, and they're just fab. They're the kind of guys who go to the studio and do they meditate and eat vegan food and do headstands rather than bring cans.
Well, you can see that though in the intensity and the concentration that they have as musicians, and their skill. I mean, we're talking Barry Donoghue on bass.
Barry Donoghue, Dominic Mullen, Johnny Taylor,
absolutely.
Yeah, they're amazing.
And my time in Dublin when I was in New Park for those 2 years, those guys were the ones that we were, when I was in first and second year, these were the ones that we were looking at going, oh, that's what we can get to? Oh, okay. Study. Wow. And a lot of those guys, I mean, in the International, I would have been there a lot of times, just sitting and watching and kind of being in awe of this jam that they would have. And Julien, I guess he was just a superstar. He was this absolute superstar.
He is a superstar. But then they're also humble. But then they have a bravado that kind of pours out as well. But it's really well balanced. But you make me miss singing with them.
Yeah. You have to get up there. Yeah, you have to get on another gig or do another album with them.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, well, Gemma, here we come now to some of the hard-hitting questions.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, exactly. Damn, should I play now? Because I know that as a vocal coach, you that's also what I was going to say. I messaged you a couple of months ago, and you so kindly got back to me with some resources and some advice and some people to look at, some things to research, and you sent on Voice Science, you sent on the Naked Vocalist. Amazing, and that's literally all I've been doing since then. So I really big thank you for that.
No
but with that came many questions from me, right? When, as anyone knows, when you go down the rabbit hole, things start to go, oh, okay, there's this and there's this. And so I really want to kind of pick your brain on your views on some of the things that I've come into contact with, and we can kind of hash it out between us, or you can take the lead, whatever way it happens. Okay, so the first one I guess I want to talk about is you having studied classical singing, right?
Yeah.
And so you were in as a soprano, I guess, maybe? Or...
Yeah. Right. Lyric soprano.
Soprano. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so, in the contemporary world, we have this. There's this kind of back and forth between classical world of singing and contemporary world of singing, where there's this kind of I don't know, there's this weird thing of registers and people not wanting to necessarily constrict singers anymore into certain registers that we have been prone, or kind of it has been designed to be understood for us in the past couple of 100 years, which is the soprano, the mezzo, the alto, and then you have your, you know, contratenor or whatever it is, and then you have your bass, baritone. And I remember growing up in musical theatre, my family, and it was always all about that. It was always, what voice type are you? And it's fantastic because it was, you kind of went, oh, okay, that's where I am. And then you were able to, you know, be comfortable.
Yeah.
But it also, when I was growing up, also put people in boxes, and also cut people off from having opportunities to extend their range, or to feel that they had more to give. In musical theatre, the tenors were the ones that got the lead roles.
Yes.
And the baritones were usually the ones that were the sidekick or whatever it is. And then also in the female world of singing, it was usually the sopranos, and the altos were the kind of character roles, like in the classical world, like in opera. And so, you know, and so my question, I guess, is, what is your view on registers? How strict should they be, specifically in the realm of contemporary music, which is what you're doing?
Okay, so I mean, we love categories. They kind of put us at ease, don't they? They, like, you know the way, that feeling you have when you want to do a personality test. You kind of want to know, like, what kind of type am I? And so there's like there's a human need to have a categorization. I definitely think that everybody has a tesseratura, like a place where your voice sits and feels very happy, and that you kind of want to access from there and live there most of the time, but also explore the possibilities in other areas. And like the human voice, it's kind of a chaotic thing, and in different contexts your voice will suit in different ways. So maybe you might have an alto who has a lot of body, and that lower register is a bit fuzzy in the middle, but then has a beautiful hooty head register. So the repertoire that you might put her in, you know, should maybe more be dictated by that. But then maybe she spends a year or two working on the fuzzy bit in the middle. Next thing you know, she's really, really great for mezzo work. Right. But now, because she's so focused on her upper register, some of the lower, you know, so it's a real moving target. And I think then also, but I mean, definitely for roles, like even in music theatre, although music theatre people are kind of expected to just be able to do it all. They just have to be like superhero, Hulk, athlete, vocalist.
Especially now with all of the new type of contemporary musical theatre, it's crazy what they're expected to do.
Totally, because it's splintered off into like rock music theatre, jazz music theatre, and like gospel music theatre. It's really, really demanding. It's really interesting coaching. I don't coach music theatre singers a lot because that wouldn't really be my genre. I'd be more a contemporary coach of like pop music. But I really enjoy it because they have to be it's so prescribed, it's so specific. They have like a dotted minim that they have to sing, and for the minim part of that, they have to be on an A vowel with like, you know, fairly heavy registration, like so a thick sound, and then it needs to taper off into an E that adds a vibrato that starts at this rate and then moves to another rate. You know, that all happens in that dotted minim. But then of course a pop singer might just offset and just go at the end, or do at the end instead, and not stay on, and don't even do the dot. So that's the comparative with music theatre and contemporary. But I suppose the big thing that really changes, like, or opens up that freedom in like how you registrate your voice in contemporary is technology. So microphones allow us to sing here, or we can be or, you know, we can use all these lovely nuances. We can be loud and belty, the microphone's going to compress it. Whereas classical, you needed your voice to be heard, you needed it to spin in the room, whether you're singing over a beautiful Steinway in a big wet airy concert hall, or you're singing over a massive orchestra. You need to be able to hit some frequencies that the orchestra aren't getting to, so that's going to dictate how your voice resonates, and it limits how the voice is going to resonate to a certain extent. And the possibilities got blown open then when, you know, we started singing jazz on microphones, and then that turned into contemporary.
When you're doing your classes, your contemporary singing classes, when someone comes in and says, I am an alto, but I want to sing whatever it is, I want to sing, I can't even think of a soprano-ish voice in
Like
contemporary.
Jessie J or something.
Right, okay, yeah, so I want to get up there and I want to be able to do that lovely resonated vowel things with loads of riffs and stuff like that, but they say that I can't because I'm an alto. What do I do?
I would say that I would ask them why. I would kind of make sure that we get to the why and get to the real reason, and make sure that it's definitely a goal that they want and that they're not just doing for somebody else, or
Right.
to prove something to somebody, or we'll do the holistic, get to the why first. And then I'm like, okay, well, that your voice, your tesseratura sits here. This is very natural for you. So you're going to reconfigure your vocal tract shapes and your vibratory patterns to a certain extent. It's going to take a bit of time. Your body has a memory of doing things a certain way. Are you ready to be, it's a lot of like kind of brain work, like training your brain to kind of remember new sounds, dial them in and repeat them, and remember them, dial them in, repeat them. And you are moving away from maybe where they naturally sit, and you want to make sure you have really good reason for doing that. And if I'm happy with their reason, then we'll definitely look at it. But I suppose I wouldn't try to stray too far away from where their voice naturally has a lot of beauty and has a lot of ease. So that would be my kind of approach with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you also. I think it's very important to encourage people that they have the ability to stretch their range and to change some kind of patterns that have been ingrained in their vocal tract and way in which they use their muscles and stuff, that there is a way that you can. But I think it's also important to encourage people to love what they have too.
Yeah.
To really kind of go, I agree that this place is cool what Jessie J does, absolutely, but it's also, if you start listening down to maybe Layla Hathaway stuff, where she's really, I know she goes way up and stuff, but really enjoying that lovely resonated low range, and then people can get inspired by different types of singers. I think it's because the Jessie J's are on the radio all the time, singers tend to feel like, oh, that's what I should be doing as a female.
It's really fun modeling a voice, and it's really fun listening to what are the kind of ingredients in that singer's sound, and then coming back to the singer that's in front of you and their voice, and I'm checking out what are the beautiful ingredients that they have, and I'm like, well, how can we find our version of a Jessie J? How can we add some of the Jessie J spice or that upper partials and the harmonics to your sound?
Right.
But we're not taking on a new identity as a singer. We're just kind of expanding or broadening what you're already doing.
Yeah, and exactly, to encourage them to really love what they have, and
Definitely.
not feel that they don't have enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that it needs to be different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I heard you using some really interesting kind of scientific words there, and I guess the question also that I wanted to ask was your understanding of the physiology of the voice at the moment and the science of the voice and how it works. How important is that information for your students to hear, or do you contort it a bit, or not contort it, but kind of curve it a bit so that they can take it a bit better, in the sense of using maybe different words or using imagery? What's your kind of process?
Yeah, I would do what you were just saying there. I would be careful not to bog them down with the knowledge that I have about the voice. Not like that makes me sound like I have some special amount of intellectual knowledge. It's not. It's just that it's really, I went through a phase of being I felt like I was in puppy dog mode initially when I started learning all of the science, and I was like, oh my god, I know all these things, do you want to hear about it? And I kind of have reined myself in a lot, and now I just kind of listen and ask good questions. Keep asking a lot of questions. Listen to the language that they're using, the terminology that they're using, and then adopt to their terminology. But underneath their terminology, I just make sure I kind of really understand what they're looking for. I really want them to understand what they're looking for and how things feel, and creating a lot of awareness with them. But I'm really not married to any terms, and I don't impose that they call a muscle by a muscle's name or anything like that. I just kind of, you know, if we want to call it Barney the dinosaur, whatever we want to call a register.
Crico the dinosaur.
Yeah.
Good character to patent.
And so, yeah, exactly. I just, I kind of try to just adapt to what they use and what makes them feel comfortable. But I think actually, it was swung in a pendulum of coming away from being taught in imagery and metaphors and feeling like I didn't know what I was doing. And I felt like I had nothing that was grounding me. And then swinging all the way up to, I know the specific muscles that I am using on this note with the acoustic event that's happening at the same time with the level of subglottal pressure. And so, and now that was kind of in reaction to this. But I feel like as a teacher, I can give people appropriate I can lead them appropriately without bogging them down with the science. If they feel like they want to get into it a little bit more, obviously I can lead them there, and they might want to eventually become a vocal coach. But I kind of read the situation on an individual basis, but do my best not to bog them down with too much technical analysis.
Yeah, because I mean that can just cloud them, and that can just stop people in their tracks and go, oh, whoa, that's singing? No. I just want to go this way.
Yeah.
But I also agree in this. I think that's a really interesting point that you made, in the sense of like coming from a world of it only being imagery and people saying, reach for the apple, and that is your elongation of your throat or whatever it is, and coming from that place of kind of going,
I can't find the apple.
Exactly. I don't have an apple tree. I don't even like apples. But coming from this kind of going, that doesn't help. That doesn't. In a way, yes, but also when you go down the path of kind of going, well, hold on a second, wait, why is this working? How is this working? You realize, I know that from my own personal experience of having some teachers and them using mainly just imagery and kind of metaphors and thinking. And then kind of thinking, wait, there's more to it, and how do I get there? And then that's I guess that's the path that I know I found myself on in the last 2 years, really.
I think that it gets confusing for the student when the teacher is using metaphors from a metaphor that they've learnt.
Right, yeah.
Whereas if you're using your own metaphors for something that you know and there's facts behind it that you really thoroughly understand, then, and that metaphor can shape change as it needs to. Whereas if they're rigid in their metaphors because it's just a metaphor that's been passed on to them, it's not as effective.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think once you start going down that route, you tend to find metaphors tend to come your way anyway. You kind of go, oh yeah, that is exactly like that. And it is like the balloon with the small little thing at the top, and it makes them, and all this. Really interesting, and people then can react. I think it's because as a teacher then you're coming from a different place with that metaphor. You're not allowing it just to fall out of your mouth. Exactly. Okay, so when you're then so you're in your class and maybe actually not even in your class, you're just about to go to a gig, and you're sitting in your car, and you think, ooh, I have a small bit of, something's going on here. I'm not sure what it is, but I can't seem to get the power even in my speaking voice. What's your kind of methodology of kind of, or what's your path to get to the place that, okay, now I'm prepared?
So is it in that moment that we don't have that moment just before the gig? Is it that kind of long-term preparation, or is it what do you do in that moment?
I guess I'm thinking more about in that moment. Yeah. So a lot of performers when they're going to a gig, they kind of go, "Whoa, hold on a second. I've done all my training. I've done my warm-ups. I've done my things the past couple of days, and now I'm in this moment of, whoa, what do I do?"
Yeah. So I usually have found that it can be that you psych yourself out sometimes a little bit. It's like when coronavirus first started being a thing. You know, I don't know, did you have any days I woke up and I was like, no, I think I might have it. It's because I was reading about it, thinking about it, you know, obsessing over it. Right, so then if you are obsessing over this gig and you're thinking, and you're like, you better work on Saturday. And like, then you sit into the car and you're like, it's not working. No, that's dry. That is dry. No, it's definitely dry. No, I'm dry. And then, you know, the neck muscles are tensing. You are making yourself dry because you're like, panting maybe. I don't know what's going on, but your nervous system and your cortisol levels are flying up, and you probably need to actually just check yourself. And and I've done this to myself so many times. I've used EFT, an emotional freedom technique. I've done a bit of tapping, so that's really good for calming me down. And I say negative beliefs that I'm having, like I'm not good enough, I'm going to crack on that note, I'm not good enough, I'm not able for this, why am I even doing this, I don't belong leading a band, all that like negative stuff. And then I reprogram it and be like, no, you've practiced for this, you've been studying this for years, they want you to be good and be great, the audience are there to see you and they want to have a great time. And so I start kind of reprogramming my mindset, and usually by the time any time that I have done that, and I have like, you know, set an affirmation, like I'm going to make sure the band have a really good time tonight. It's my responsibility. I'm taking it on. I want them to have fun, and I want the audience to have fun. I want everyone to have fun because I was there tonight. And I take the obsession about myself away, and that actually relaxes me an awful lot as well. You know, that like everybody isn't obsessing or listening in the detail to you that you think that they are. They're just there to have a good night. They're on a work party. They're living their own lives. So shifting your mindset. So mindset would be my protocol there. Yeah. If it was physical, I mean, I would definitely, if you have an opportunity not to talk at all before the gig, even like an hour or 2 hours straight of rest would be brilliant, and pop into the cubicle with a straw and do a few glides and off you go. I would say that would be like my physical protocol there. But in the long run, I would say it's looking at the gigs as the marathon, and you do your jog daily every day, and you prepare adequately, your mindset and your physicality and your vocals, and yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard about that. What did you call it? EFT, emotional freedom technique. Sounds beautiful. Yeah. It's kind of a combination of neuro-linguistic programming and emotional freedom techniques. You're tapping on acupuncture points, checking the negative beliefs, and then reprogramming into positive beliefs. And it's worked wonders for me before. It's one thing I don't have science for, and I feel like it might be the thing that helps me the most. Yeah. Yes, sometimes in a way, kind of ignorance is bliss, in a way of kind of just like, faith in something can also help so much. That's totally true. It is like a faith. Yeah. I love that. That's great. I'm definitely gonna look that up. It's great. Oh. Okay, and so then, what are your go-to warm-ups? So then you've taken you away from the car, taken you back a few days there, and you're just about to sing that big song, and you want to do a lovely warm-up. And what's your go-to one? What's your kind of favorite one? It's so varied. And I feel like that's such a diplomatic, like annoying, grey thing to say. But like I don't have one, and I think the way I kind of do it is I reverse engineer it from the repertoire. So I check what the repertoire is going to need, and then I'll base some exercises on what the repertoire is going to need. Right. So if I have to do some distortion, we'll do some distortion. If I have to do some twangy, belty stuff, then we'll do lots of twangy stuff. I try to be kind of a bit more like micro, like specific in a particular part. Like, so rather than doing extended arpeggios, that I might just go tone back and forth until I really have that settling for me. But like all semi-occluded, I find occluding is just the bomb and always kind of sets my voice up in a nice balance. I might do something like, you know, sing the verse on a blowfish, like, and actually try and do like Girl in the Box, like singing the lyric, like if you were and that gives you that sense of occlusion, but I'm also dialing in the lyric and the vowel shapes as well. So
right, yeah. It's funny that you do that now. I'm just remembering a thing that myself and my brother used to do when we were younger, which it was, I don't know, was a Girl in the Box, but it was someone in the closet. Or my aunt used to do that when we were younger. She was going,
oh yeah,
I got oh, stop in the closet. Using that kind of blowfish kind of technique that you were talking about, and the
it's a skill.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, okay, so on this topic, because I know we're gonna be wrapping up now soon, because I feel like I could maybe just talk to you now for the next 4 or 5 hours. There's so much, and it's so nice to talk with you. But with your warm-ups, okay, and I found this recently as well, and maybe this is the last thing we can talk about. That I feel that sometimes when I'm working with a contemporary singer or someone that wants to do maybe some soul or some riffing, that it feels like when I start doing the warm-ups, I don't know, like the classical, you know, classical in both senses, and the classical music warm-ups in the sense of what they use for classical music, and also the classical ones that people know. I'd use up, you know, the 5-note scales, the things like that. But I want to maybe ask you what your thoughts are in the sense of like adapting warm-ups maybe to use some of the more pentatonic scales and stuff that is much more what our singers or what contemporary singers will be hearing and singing.
Yeah, it's a good idea, definitely, to use pentatonics. I feel like that there are, every time that I do a warm-up, I give them an area of focus. So if I don't want the area of focus to be the scale, then I'm going to do the major 5-note descending, because I want to automate that part of the exercise, and I want them to really think about keeping their jaw neutral. And so I'm going to keep everything about that exercise fairly automated except for the element of the jaw, and then I might actually challenge the tongue to do something unusual, so that the tongue is moving from the back to the front, like on a kana or daga. And so I'm just asking them to keep neutral jaw and do kana 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 daga 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 daga, something like that, so that it's like so specific about the tongue and the jaw being neutral. And then we might move to something else where I really want them to just really feel and move around in that pentatonic and feel those interval spaces, and feel really comfy in it and build up speed in it, because you might have to riff using it. So we might like just have an area of focus of speed, moving up and down, and that pentatonic scale. So I kind of like, I always think of like all the different ways one warm-up can be done, you know what I mean, and all the different challenges or opportunities for creating awareness we could find in just one warm-up.
Right. I think, yeah, I completely get what you mean, and I think it's, as you said, it depends on maybe the repertoire or the song or the focus in which the student or the customer wants to achieve, or maybe also from the teacher's point of view of what you would like to hear more of.
Yeah, and lots of this is coming from Feldenkrais, and Robert Sassouma is a really cool guy to check out if you haven't seen him. He's got some really cool content on his website, but he talks about, you know, the brain, and it's to release that dopamine in the brain is to have that novelty in what you're doing, but then that element also of like some scaffolding or some structure. So every warm-up should have some kind of familiarity that you're automating a little bit, but also something new, and that's kind of, you know, drawing your attention to it. So to be, and especially I notice that if I'm just drilling, I'm not even listening to them, I kind of have to challenge my own ear, and to be very specific about what I'm trying to listen for. And then it's varying. You could do so many different variations on just one exercise. Like, you know, for example, on my warm-up today, I was talking about separating brightness from nasality. So I had singers doing like I was asking them to pinch their nose, so and make it nasal on a ya. So I wanted yeah. And then I was like, okay, now can you pinch your nose again? But I just want the brightness to be present. I don't want the nasality. So we practiced yeah, 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 yeah. And then we toggled back and forth between those two things so that they were able to include that nasality and that brightness at once, you know, and that they knew the difference between the two. So that was like an area of focus, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's those moments in class where it's so important for the student to really feel the difference between
Yeah.
separate types of sounds, of noises that
Yeah.
they can make, right?
And like, you know, having that, it's really good to give them a compare and contrast scenario where they, you know, I might even get them to retract their tongue a lot to feel what that feels like, and then get them to bring their tongue all the way out and go, and now what does that feel like? So then they have a reference point.
Exactly.
And the more extreme you make the reference points, the clearer it kind of becomes for them.
Absolutely. And also then they can take on what they like from both. And if they say, actually, I do want to be a bit more nasal, or I want to have that more twang or whatever it is, then they understand that that's something that they can do.
Yes, and they just glide it along the spectrum as they wish.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And okay, so great, Gemma, that's fantastic. And I love this thing, what you were doing about the nose thing. I love knowing that that's a technique that I use as well in my classes. I know I can take that and say, okay, you're doing that right, Connor.
Yes.
Because as you know, and as we all know, each one of us are always still learning and growing as singing teachers, as people, as performers, and singers ourselves. And so these kind of conversations are kind of, you know, they're so important.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And I'm constantly updating all of the time, I would say, and especially at the moment I'm going through a bit of a growth in my updating. Yeah, it never ends. And that's what's fun about it. But you have to be really ready to, it's funny, like, you know, I think you talked earlier about, like, you know, the blinkers can start coming in, and you have to notice when that's happening and allow them to open out and kind of take in some new ideas again, because it's kind of a moving target, and it's the research it's really new, the world of voice science.
Yeah, right. And that's also, but that sometimes then is this thing where it feels like there is so much, you kind of go, whoa, hold on a second there. You know, where do I put my hand down, or who do I listen to? And I think from the VIP thing, what you said, the vocology in practice, having that community is you know, so great to be a part of, and knowing that each one of you are going your journeys, but each one of you is keeping the other one along and keeping that one along. And
Yeah, that's the accountability of it is great, definitely.
right,
Yeah, but I think that, you know, so I mean, the science is really important. And then, like, you know, you're such a musical person. That's such a part of, like, your own ear also is, I'm sure, a huge part of your teaching, and your instinct as a good musician and as an appreciator of good music and good sound is part of the equation too.
yeah. I would say it's definitely it's something that I feel, you know, in the moment, if it's coming from a real place, or you've just kind of just said it just to get past that minute in your class. You know, it's a very different feeling of kind of just saying something because you go, okay, I want to get on to the next thing, I have to just tell them something. But when you really feel it, and you kind of do trust your ear, and you have listened, and you have experienced music, I think it's definitely something that holds to you as a teacher, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, look, Gemma, this has been so great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Connor.
I'd love to do another one. I'm not going to pin you down now, but definitely in the future, I'd love to, because there's some other stuff that I really want to touch on with you specifically. Yeah, great. So look, I'm going to put onto the video, I'll put some Voiceworks stuff and some other information that we went through, some other people that you mentioned. I've taken some notes, and yeah, that's it.
See you soon.
Yeah, exactly. See you soon.
Okay.
Have a lovely day.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.